The DA is happy that the Supreme Court of Appeal has declared that Section 61A of the South African Citizenship Act of 1995 is inconsistent with the Constitution. This means that some South Africans who lost their citizenship will now have the opportunity to reclaim their status. Joining us is Adrian Roos, DA Member of Parliament. Mr. Roos, appreciate your time this afternoon. How significant is the Supreme Court of Appeal's declaration around Section 61A of the South African Citizenship Act inconsistent with the Constitution and invalid?
Well, it's absolutely life-changing for the South Africans that lost their citizenship without knowing it and now being stuck overseas. We as the DA have been receiving so many, messages of congratulations and thanks from persons and all their stories that they are telling about being separated from families and being stuck, and really the pain of being told that you're no longer a South African. And so it's a momentous judgment.
So let's talk about the background and historical context of this Section 61A of the Citizenship Act. How did this provision contribute to the systemic stripping of citizenship from black South Africans, particularly during the apartheid era?
Yeah, so basically what the provision says is that if you take on the citizenship of another country while you are not a minor, by any means other than marriage, then you lose your citizenship unless you ask the minister to retain your citizenship. Now, this is a relic from the apartheid era citizenship law, which was used where anti-apartheid activists who went to stay in the Bantustans and stayed overseas in exile, it was used to attempt to strip them of their citizenship without them knowing it.
Now, talk to us about the role that the DA played abroad. Now, it's a 9-year campaign, I believe, to challenge this apartheid-era provision.
Look, I have to say that this is one of those cases which really demonstrates a whole-of-society approach that the DA is really trying to drive. And it started really with the DA abroad, and in the 2014 election noticing that a number of persons couldn't register overseas because they'd suddenly lost their citizenship. And so there was a 9-year battle in that regard. There was also the help of SA people to get the stories, to get people to come forward and say, I've been affected. And then a 5-year court battle by the Democratic Alliance. And it was strange that the ANC government was fighting this apartheid law, which was it should have been struck down a long time ago. And so it's been a long time in the making, almost 10 years now, and just a massive relief to all concerned.
Why would the ANC fight this?
Look, I asked this question to the minister because this is not the first issue of this government fighting to strip South Africans of their citizenship. There was a case a few years ago of Chisuse where South Africans born of one South African parent overseas, the Home Affairs was also trying to fight that and strip those children of their citizenship. And so the minister asked, is this just a ploy by the DA to get votes to win the election? And I'm glad the minister believes we can win the election. But I think it just shows, when the minister asks that kind of a question, you've got to question why they are fighting this so hard. But the Minister of Home Affairs has indicated that they do not intend, or they will accept this judgment, which is great news, and it's a good result in the end for all concerned.
Now, how many people are concerned? How many South Africans, or former South Africans for that matter, are affected by this new judgment?
Well, there are literally thousands. So we just got we got a large number of persons that responded personally. I think there were concerns. I mean, we'd like to thank Mr. Plaatjes in particular, who was willing to come and testify. But there were concerns from a large number of people that they would be victimized if they had to come forward to testify in this case. And so big kudos to Mr. Plaatjes for coming forward and testifying and making sure that we could win this matter.
So let's talk about the next steps now. What happens if to these individuals that are sitting in various parts of the world that would like to claim their citizenship back? What are these steps that will unfold in the next few weeks or months?
Okay, so this was a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment. And so when there's a judgment of constitutionality, so what they've said is that Section 61A is unconstitutional, and that all those that lost their citizenship as a result of it get their citizenship back. But any such judgment on constitutionality, it has to go to the Constitutional Court to be ratified first. So the DA abroad is putting out an advisory, but at this point in time, persons should carry on as usual until such time as the judgment is ratified. And then there will be a process put in place to assist the persons on how they can get their identity and passport documents again.
Now, I'd imagine that with all things that require some form of ratification and impact the Constitution, it doesn't happen overnight. What sort of period can we look at or expect it to become effective?
It is difficult to say, unfortunately. But we hope sooner rather than later. I think it has a significant effect. Having lost their citizenship, a number of people now travel back to South Africa on their foreign passports. And now South Africans are allowed to have dual nationalities, but they must come in on their South African passport. But I think it's critical that since this matter arose from 2014 when persons couldn't register to vote, and that we have an election coming up in just under a year, I'm sure that the matter will be ratified in due haste.
And finally, before we let you go, what are some of the key lessons that you think are drawn from this judgment?
Look, I think it's a great example, as I said, of a whole of society approach and how persons coming forward and fighting for their rights can work and can deliver results. I think it's really a story of hope for South Africans, even South Africans overseas, that came together, that came forward with their stories, the fight of the DA abroad to bring this forward, and also a number of South Africans that volunteer their time overseas to help South African citizens with home affairs issues. And so, I think it's a strong lesson in the whole of society approach, and that persons mustn't give up. They must fight for their rights. And even though sometimes it takes a long time, it takes 5 or 9 years, at the end of the day, we can win. And it's an important lesson. South Africans should be encouraged. They should participate in politics and not write it off. Because at the end of the day, we shouldn't be punished just because there are some bad politicians. It doesn't make politics bad. And this shows the result of political activism and work in the court and work in civil society, which has all come together to produce this amazing result.
Well, congratulations to you and certainly to all South Africans, Mr. Roos, DA Member of Parliament. Appreciate your time this afternoon.